Hello and welcome to my dining room. This is episode 33 of the Live and Learn Knitting Podcast. My name is Anne or Annie, and I'm coming to you from the banks of the Mississippi River in western Wisconsin. Today is Friday, January 16th, 2025. First podcast of the new year. It seems like it's been a minute, hasn't it? Yes. Wow. And I understand that today is considered Quitter's Day, when, all the New Year's resolutions that we made, people just say, oh, to heck with it, I've had enough, can't do it. I really didn't make any resolutions. I like to have goals. I think I said that in the year-end wrap-up, and I had some goals for the new year, and one of them we'll talk about, or a bunch of them we'll talk about towards the end of the episode, but kind of all along through. Mention some of the goals that I had. I apologize if there is some outside noise. I'm recording a little bit later in the day than usual, and sometimes that there's stuff happening outside that comes into the room. We'll see. Hopefully not too bad. Okay. So yeah, it's been a busy morning already because it's actually afternoon. And the day is getting away from me, but it was a good morning. Ooh, the sun's coming back out. That's a good thing. So yeah, it started out really sunny. I started the day early at 6:30. My friend Jim in Chicago, he does his morning commute, and sometimes we chat on the phone while he's driving to work, which we did today, and had a really nice catch up, and that was good. I got to hear what projects he's working on, and that got me motivated to work on my project, which I'll chat about in a little bit. Well, I guess I'll say thank you first. Oh boy, it's gonna be a day. Thank you to everyone who watches. I appreciate it so much, and thank you for your comments. I had a question from a newer viewer, because I know I've talked about all these plants before, but they asked what plant. I think they were wanting to know what plant this was, maybe, but we'll go through them real quick. This is my orange, which it's a miniature orange. It's actually a cross between an orange and a kumquat, the variety of orange that is, that tree. So that's an orange tree. This one right here is a little jade plant, and then right behind me is a weeping fig, or a ficus plant. Here's a pumpkin down here that I haven't got up yet from Thanksgiving or Halloween, Thanksgiving time, and it's holding on. It still feels pretty good, so I'll get to it. I will get to it. Yeah, I think that's all the plants that you can see. So yeah, orange, fig, jade. There's a lot more that are actually here in the area, but those are the biggies. So, plants. For beverages today, I actually have, look at this. This is how my day has been going. I have 3 beverages on the go right now because I started out with water. I was thirsty, water. And then I made a cup of tea. I had an online video clinic appointment after I got done talking to my friend Jim. So I needed tea to get me through that. And it's still in here and it's ice cold, but that's okay. Then I walked downtown to the coffee shop and oh my gosh, here comes George. I haven't heard from him all day, and here he shows up because I'm talking. Oh. So, and the table is a mess right now. It's got all kinds of things all over it. Not just podcast stuff, but other stuff. So, yeah, so I walked downtown and to the coffee shop and met up with a couple knitting friends, Beth and Becky, and we chatted and did that. And he just bumped the camera, and so here we are, knitting and chatting, and with cats who don't want their picture taken. So yeah, it's been a busy morning and packed full. So I will start out with what I'm wearing, and we'll call this episode, obviously it's turning into the Screwball episode. This sweater is called Indigo Smoke. The pattern is called Indigo Smoke, and it's by Kristen Joel, and I actually do have This is so exciting. I have the actual book that it came out of. I could find it. I saw it yesterday and I thought I already talked about this sweater, but I don't think I did. I don't think I wore it. I looked back when I was trying to get dressed this morning. What can I wear on the podcast? Some little knitting thing. Yeah, and I don't think I've talked about this sweater yet. This is from a 2018 fall-winter issue of Knit.wear. And Knit.wear is a magazine that I really don't understand the purpose of it. And it's not, I don't think it's being made anymore. Hi, George. But yeah, I did not subscribe to it, but I would find issues every now and again at a yarn shop or at a store, and I purchased a few. Look, it's the cover sweater. And Kristen Joel, and this sweater called for, let's see, I tagged the page. Oh, I thought I tagged the page. There's George's tail. Oh, golly, bear with me. Yeah, it's not my first time, is it? But it's sure seeming like it. Okay, here we go. It called for Jaeger spun, or I don't know if it's Jaeger or Jagger, but Jagger spun Heather Sport. It's a sport weight sweater. George, oh my gosh. We'll see if he makes us go squee-hunky. The gauge was 21 stitches to 4 inches. So what is that? Is that 5.5 stitches to the inch? Do the math, or is it 5 1/4? That's 5 1/4. Sorry. I really don't want to stop and start again. So we'll just keep going with. Please don't do that, Georgie. 5 1/4 stitches to the inch. So a sport weight. I used Peyton's classic wool because that's what I have a lot of. And I just probably did a gauge swatch and picked out, you know, a size appropriate for that gauge. I knit this in 2020, pre-pandemic though, January. This was part of the Yarnology, the local yarn shop in Winona, Minnesota, their sweater challenge that they have every year, cast on January 1st and finished by either Valentine's Day or the end of February. I think they've changed it over the years. So I wrote in my Ravelry notes, which I will look at right now and get them out of George's way. I started, I stayed up till midnight on New Year's Eve 2019, and I did the cast on, which was 292 stitches because the pattern is written bottom up, but I like to do top down. So I did a provisional cast on right here under the yoke, the pattern yoke section. And so this was, 292 stitches across here, and I worked the yoke bottom up. You're not helping because they can't see the yoke, George. Oh my gosh, fast. And so I did that bottom up, and I think, and there are short rows in the back to raise the back of the neck. Now he's chewing on the power cords. And then I took out that provisional cast on and worked down, did the split for sleeves, and just worked the body down. The body is just a solid brown. I'm not going to stand up because I was kind of comfy here till the monster cat came around and settled. I was settled. And but it does have a sleeve detail where it has that patterning again. And why I call this the Screwball sweater is because this color work in my Ravelry project page, I named this "There's a New Brown in Town," aka the Screwball sweater. So this I did in 2020, early 2020, and I had only been retired. I retired in November of 2017. And as I said, I had to wear a brown uniform while I worked. And as a kid growing up, I had to wear this ugly brown, I think I was in 3rd grade or 4th grade, pantsuit that my mom got for me secondhand somewhere. I had a blue one and a brown one, and I hated the brown one. I thought it was so ugly, and it felt nasty. It was polyester double knit. It was bad. And I thought, oh, I don't like brown. Brown does not, when you have brown hair, and it doesn't do anything for you. Brown, brown, brown. It was so depressing. So having to wear a brown uniform for so many years it was soul sucking, believe me. And I said, I'm not wearing brown again. But this is such a pretty warm brown. And I'm sure I bought this. Bye-bye. He's gone, I hope, for a while. When I bought this brown yarn, I was buying a whole bunch of Peyton's Classic Wool at the Hirschner's warehouse sale because it was, $2 a ball for a 100-gram ball. Because it was a good sale price. So I bought yarn. And I thought, well, I'll do something with it. I'll knit a blanket with it. I'll knit whatever's with it. So I bought all these different colors. And I have a lot. I have a whole trunk full of it and then some. Because I think even after the warehouse sale, I started buying, Hirschner's would send out emails. And this is on sale. This is discounted. So yeah, I bought more. Mail order. Built up my stash with this brown, with not just with brown, but with a whole bunch of whatever colors they had on sale. I've got some really nice shades. And I've made a bunch of sweaters using this yarn and many other things, hats and scarves and mittens and you name it. I've done a lot with this yarn. I still have a lot left. So I called it, there's a new brown in town because I said I wouldn't ever wear brown again, but look at me wearing a brown sweater. I mean, putting this color with it makes it happy. And it's okay. I'm fine wearing, I guess I will stand up a smidge. This is a lot going on in the body here. It goes way down. I made it top down so that, it can go down, kind of cover up my lower belly. It's at a kind of a comfortable length for me, for what it's worth. And I looked back in my notes, which just went to sleep here. And I will post these, you can link to the my Ravelry page if you want to see more photos of it, but I will put one photo of it on the blog when I update that. So I worked top down so I could get the length that I wanted and more so than body length, which is important for me, but sleeve length is the big thing, when I do the top down. And you can see it looks all wrinkly right now, but that's just how it is today. Sleeve length is really the issue. For one thing, not running out of yarn like I did with that other brown summer sweater. But I don't like a sleeve that's really long. And this is so interesting because I'm wearing it and I'm actually getting really overheated right now. Because it's warm, it's balmy, you're going to see redness on my cheeks because I'm overheated. But it's a balmy 30-some degrees outside. And I've got a turtleneck on and I actually kind of cuffed it under because for some reason all the turtleneck, when I wear it, will go way down on it just kind of grows as I'm wearing it. This dark brown one anyway. And the sleeve of the turtleneck goes way down onto my hand. And then the sleeve of the sweater goes way up. It's a weird, I don't know what's going on with this sweater, with the turtleneck that's underneath. But yeah, that's how it's kind of causing that. If I wear a different turtleneck, that doesn't necessarily happen. I don't think I've worn this sweater without a turtleneck on. Maybe I have. I don't know. Usually have another layer underneath this sweater. That's why it's extra warm. So this isn't necessarily a hot beverage anymore. Yeah, it still is. So that's warming me up. But this is a cold one, coldish. The tea is cold right now. And the tea today, I think you can tell, everything except the water has had caffeine in it. So the tea today was peach bergamot bright day tea, yogi tea. And it did have caffeine in it. Some of theirs do and some don't. You have to read which ones you're getting. Apparently I'm doing caffeine today. He's back. He's coming back. Oh. All right. So, yeah, I did top down. And it's got short rows at the back of the neck to raise that up. And I realized I wrote, good, done. The length is good. I can wear it with leggings. I've tried it on before blocking. There's I only did, at the bottom, I only did 4 rows of ribbing. So it's not even an inch, maybe barely an inch of ribbing at the bottom, which is fine because as I've said before, I don't need my sweaters to go in. I don't go in. So they really don't need to do that. It's just an edging to kind of keep everything from curling or, flipping up or flare anything. So yeah, it's not really much of a ribbing, and how it's blocked and how it's been worn, it doesn't do much. So I guess it was flipping up right after I knit it. And this is so funny because while we were at knitting today, there were only 2 of us because a couple other ladies have colds. And so while we were there, Peg texted us and said, "Are you ready for a knitting question?" She was kind of coming into our little chat virtually, and she said, "I'm working on my sweater and the ribbing is flipping up and I'm not happy, and what do you think? What should I do?" She said she went down a couple needle sizes as per the pattern, and the ribbing is flipping up, and so I texted her and I said, "I think it'll block out, and once you wash it and block it, it'll lay down and it'll lay flat." And right at the same time that I texted, Ellen sent a text as well, said it's going to lay down when you wash and block it. So that was the consensus. And yeah, apparently that's what happened with this sweater. So Peg, yes, if you're watching, if you're listening, it'll be fine. Just, yeah, it'll wash and block out and lay flat. Trust the yarn. Yeah, trust the process. So my update that happened, what I learned from knitting this project was that as I wore this sweater, the neck was growing and it was way out here. So after I had this sweater and wore it for a year, that neckline had grown. So because I did bottom up, and this was a cast off, and then did top down, and this was a cast off at the end, I was able to take the ribbing out. I undid it and put it back on the needles, and I still had some yarn left. So, and you can kind of see a little bit, maybe, but I added a few more because I'm trying to think if I must have washed this since, and that's been several years. But it just maybe, a little bit different needle size or something. So I did a couple more rows, and I think I I decreased another 14 stitches around, knit another inch, and filled in a bit, and then did more ribbing, same amount of ribbing, cast that off. So I just sort of filled that neck back in, and that seemed to work very well. And it hasn't grown out since I did that. So, if you have a sweater that has done something like that, don't be afraid to take it apart a bit. Maybe all you have to do is take the neckline off and rework it, add a bit, or add a bit to fill in, and see how it goes. Put it back together. That's what I did here, and it worked very well. So that was my live and learn lesson on this sweater. And I realized that, oh, and I did write too that I lost some weight since I had finished the sweater, and felt like it was bulky. Right now I've gained some of that weight back, so it doesn't feel so bulky. But when I looked up in this pattern book about that sweater, and there are some beautiful photos of that sweater project in here. To know, page 17, page 16. Yeah, you know, very lovely photos. The sweater right before it is just as pretty. Look at this one. Modern Fair Isle. I want to make that. And I think I will. I think that might have to be one of my next projects. And that looks like it does use more, and it's also bottom up. So I will do exactly the same thing. Provisional cast on, work the yoke, cast, you know, and cast that off, and then pick up and work down. What I have a lot of this yarn, and I'm kind of getting tired of using it, but I have other yarns too. So I will find something in my stash. And if it's more Peyton's Classic Wool, so be it. But you know, just to get the colors, it looks like I would need 3 colors, the main color and 2 accent colors. So that one is knit out of, let me find it here. That one's by Adrienne Larson, and it's knit out of Stone Wool Cormo, so more of a rustic wool, distributed by Twig and Horn. I don't know if that's a yarn company that's still in business or not. I've not heard of that yarn. I mean, I've heard of Cormo wool. The gauge is 18 stitches to 4 inches, so a bit bulkier, and they suggest using 6 and 8 needles, US sizes 6 and 8 on that one. So, oh, and look, there's a little detail at the bottom. Pretty. That would be fun. That's going to look a little different going top down. I have to think about, but that should be pretty top down. If the stitches are facing down, the point of that little triangle will be, yeah, that'll work fine. So I was kind of excited to see that when I picked up this magazine. It's got some other good projects in it. I mean, look at, there's a nice long tunic with some cable action at the bottom. That's pretty. This is, no, that's not one. I had another one tagged. Here's a hat with a bunch of cables. That's nice. Yeah, I had another one detailed. The most, not all, but there are a lot of cable projects in this book. So, oh, this was the one. This is a top-down sweater, and I think that's one reason why I tagged it. Top-down and V-neck, and I just kind of like the look of that. It's, you know, kind of basic. I think in a solid color yarn. No, it's a lot of reverse stockinette, but it could be pretty. Depending on what yarn I picked for that. So, some good choices in here. There's a very sophisticated looking, well, it's Nora Gone. Oh, and I've talked about her before. Look at that one. A nice long tunic with a neck detail. I like that. I like that a lot. Not sure I have the yarn for that, and I am, okay, it's only been 16 days. Have I bought any yarn? No. Have I felt like buying any yarn? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. But I've resisted. There have been a couple good sales that have come up that I have resisted. I've been looking more at my stash yarns, which kind of gets me excited to use them. So that's been good. I am really, for the moment, buying into this. I'm going to knit down my stash and knit from stash this year. So let's hope that I can continue to do that. And yeah, find projects and yarns that go together. And we'll talk about that more. So I call this sweater the Screwball Sweater because this color that I happen to choose, for whatever reason, the sort of the cross hatchiness that you see in this stitch pattern, in the stranded color work, reminds me of when you make not chocolate chip, peanut butter cookies, and you usually flatten those with the fork going crossways, and you have that crosshatch pattern on them. That's sort of what this reminds me of. And at the time I was making this, must have been that it was 2019 when Jim came to visit for Thanksgiving. We went down to the local establishment in town and we're having a cocktail at the bar, and a friend came up and said, "Have you tried Screwball whiskey? I'm going to buy you a shot of Screwball. You have to do a shot of Screwball whiskey with me for the holidays." Well, I hadn't had it, and Jim hadn't had it, so we had it. It's peanut butter flavored whiskey, which sounds really weird and disgusting, but it's delicious. It's a little too delicious, And it's basically a liqueur. I really liked it. The peanut butter flavor was very peanut buttery. It just tasted like you were drinking a peanut butter cookie. It was good. It was. So, of course, that year for Christmas, I had to buy a bottle and take it to the family Christmas gathering and all that. And I don't know. I had to share it with friends. And it's good. I have since tried to stop buying the flavored whiskeys, the cream liqueurs, the sweetie things like that, because they are very sweet. And they're too sweet for me, really. But believe it or not, as much of a sweet tooth as I have, yeah. Because it just, for one thing, I think that sweetness aids to maybe not feeling the best the next day. The combination of sweet and alcohol, not a good thing. So, yeah. But Screwball whiskey, it really, it does taste really like a peanut butter cookie. And this kind of also reminds me of butterscotch, which is another, kind of that sweet flavor. So, Screwball. That's why I call this sweater the Screwball Sweater. And this is the Screwball episode. But these flavored beverages and flavoring in general, if you're interested, there's a very good book called The Doritos Effect by Mark Schatzker, and I will put a link to it in the show notes. And I listened to the audiobook version of it, and he really does a thorough job of explaining why processed foods and food companies, food manufacturers in general, what they've done to almost take our palates hostage, if you will. And how all of that came about. And to say something is peanut butter flavored, it's all done in a lab with chemicals, those flavors, Maybe there is some actual peanut butter essence. And I'm not knocking Screwball. I'm not trying to bring them down, the flavored whiskeys. But it's a processed food, And so they develop these flavors in the lab, and not just that, but a lot of them are developed specifically to hit the areas of our palate that make us want to eat more and buy more, and and have more and more and more. And we're not necessarily getting when it's a processed food, getting that satisfaction of feeling full and being done and all of that. It's hitting our flavor receptors, taste receptors, and we're going, oh yeah, that's good. I would like to have more and more and more. And it's not just with the Screwball whiskey, but it is kind of how Doritos were developed. And actually, I am old enough to remember when Doritos first came out. They didn't have a flavoring necessarily. They were just a tortilla chip. And then when they hit on that sort of a spicy flavoring, original Doritos, that flavor, and then Cool Ranch, that flavor. Well, all of those, all of that sort of manufactured in the lab to make you want to eat more Doritos. But he goes back and he explains the whole history of how that idea kind of came to be developed, and it really starts with chicken. So it's an interesting book. I believe that's the one that starts with chicken. I've listened to several food science history books. They're very fascinating. So if you haven't thought about that before, take a listen or read. But it was more entertaining actually for me to listen to the book. The Doritos Effect. Yeah, why we eat, or why we want to eat the things we eat or don't eat. Why we try to have to resist them. So that's that. Golly, half an hour already. Okay, lot to talk about today. I am also, in addition to knitting from stash, trying to finish projects and, work on old UFOs rather than start new projects. But this wasn't on the needles very long. It's the same yarn. See the same gold? This is the Flicker and Flame hat from Andrea Mowry. And I did say this was my last finished object of 2024. I finished this late on New Year's Eve night, cast it off. Now, look, it's an okay hat. I am not 100% thrilled with it. I love the stitch pattern. I think that's really nice. And what the color on there was a variegated version of the classic wool called Regency. And I thought those would go together well, and I think they do. It to me, it looks very Southwestern, don't you think? And what I'd like to do is knit another one and use the Regency as the main color and then the gold as the accent, and just see how that plays together. I don't know if I would put the Regency in the ribbing, but for sure in the body of the hat. Just flip those two colors and see what happens. So I might still do that when I need to cast on another project. And it's stranded color work. There's the inside. The top shaping, you can kind of see that gives just a pretty flower effect there on the top. But it's a bit too severe, and so when I washed it and blocked it, it sort of makes it lay like this. I didn't think that was terrible, but watch what happens when I put it on. It kind of gives me, it gives me some ears up here. And it's not quite slouchy enough. But it's not a beanie either. So, and I've got the headband on. So I'm not sure it's hitting me in the right spot. And I noticed that with Andrea's patterns, a lot of hers seem to have this bit of a stand-up, which I don't think, for me, that's the most flattering thing. I'd either want it to be a little bit more slouchy, or, have more to it and slouch over further, or be more of an actual beanie. So I think if I knit this pattern again, I would alter the top shaping just a bit so that it was more of an all over dome than this sort of flattened out top. That, and you know, it's weird, it shouldn't. Why did it flatten out that much? It's just the rate of decrease. So I'm gonna think about adjusting that in the future. This will probably end up going in the charity box or be a gift for a friend. If I need a gift, that's probably what will happen with this hat. Nice project, quick, you know, only bump, 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 3 repeats of the motif, and you're already doing some shaping up here in that top repeat. So, you know, very quick if you need a gift. And the pattern comes in a lot of sizes. If you, I believe it's kid size through adult large. So, and sport weight and worsted weight. Or is it fingering weight and sport weight? It's 2 different yarn weights. So, good pattern, but I'm just a little, you know, not my style for the top shaping. So I will change that in the future. So that was my last finished object for 2024. I've been just knitting so far this month, knitting a lot of cat toys. And I did finish, this is maybe my first one for 2025, those baby socks. Look how cute, look how darling. And that is from, I think that was episode 10, 8 or 10, where I talked about socks. And I said I was going to use this from the old Spinnerin pattern book that had a chart of, you know, all of the sizes. And I was going to do 1 pair of socks in every size and just see how they grew. Well, I'm starting out actually doing, so I did the baby socks. Ta-da. And children, the next size up, only adds 4 stitches. And that didn't seem very significant to me. So I'm going to skip, and I actually already have the next pair cast on of 8 stitches more. And I'm going to do every other, which will land me in the middle of the men's sizes when I finish, and then see if I want to fill in. But that would still give me 4 pair of socks in 4 different sizes, and just see. This yarn is Malabrigo sock in the Carnival colorway. I love this yarn. I mean, I love the colorway. I would like to make myself a cardigan, just a plain old, or a pullover, a sweater in that yarn. I don't have enough to do that. So if I ever see it again, I might have to buy some, but you know, it's not an urgent thing. It would just be fun to have a cardigan, I think, or a sweater in that look like that. Very modeled. I like that. It feels really soft. Now, this, I'm really, you know, don't have babies around, don't have kids around, never sure of the sizes. It just says baby, and it says size 5 to 6. And again, this is a pattern book from the 50s, I believe. So I don't know how you determine foot size or shoe size, but it does measure from heel to toe about 5.5 inches. So what size little person would that fit? I'll have to look it up. I've got some charts that tell. But it was just a fun little project to do. And here's the thing. Live and learn this. Maybe finish things, you know, keep working on projects. Don't set them down, because the toe shaping for this little sock was a little bit different than what I usually do. I usually do shape, you know, just along the 2 sides here and do Kitchener at the top. And so it had me shaping along the 2, you know, the front and the back, but it was like do your decrease round, then do 2 rounds, then do a decrease round, then do 2 rounds for a while, then do a decrease round, then a plain round, decrease, plain round, till you got up to the top, and it had me do just, you know, break the yarn and run it through the stitches and pull them together. You didn't do any Kitchener stitch at the top. So I followed the pattern exactly. This is not my standard toe shaping, but I followed it and I liked it. And I thought it made a nice rounded toe. And in fact, I was just talking with my other knitting friends yesterday, and I believe it was Zelda who worked that very shaping. Zelda and Jane, both worked that very shaping on socks that they were doing. And I thought, yeah, that's that shaping. It works well. So for the other sock, which, I mean, I finished this, you know, right away last year sometime. And then it sat and sat and sat. And I had this sock, you know, this far. So I picked it up. Okay, I'm going to finish the project. And I went along and I did the shaping as per the toe. But when I got down to my last stitches, I forgot. And I just I didn't read the pattern. And I just went automatically in Kitchener the toe on the last 6 stitches or whatever it was that I had. I didn't do the same toe. So I've got 2 different toe ends here. And you can see the difference. Look at, you can see. So do I go ahead and take that toe out and make it this toe? I might unpick that grafting and make it the same. Or I might not. It just depends on what I want to do with this pair of socks. I had thought about, maybe selling them. So, of course, then they should match. They should be matchy. If I'm just going to give them away or donate them to charity, I might just leave it. I haven't decided. I wanted to leave it until I showed you how messed up I did it, you know. Pay attention to your knitting. Don't just put yourself on autopilot, especially if it's something that is supposed to match. And it doesn't have to match. It's not the end of the world, but that's what happened. Okay. So another thing I finished, as if, you know, is this little swatch, sort of a swatch. I would imagine some of you know that Barocco is doing a year-long blanket make-along, knit-along. And they are doing at least 2 pattern blocks every month, that, you know, stitch patterns that come out, and your knitting blocks, and then at the end of the year sometime, or maybe along the way, you're sewing them together. They have a whole pattern. And it's a free thing. You can still sign up for it if you'd like to join in. I don't really have any interest in doing a whole year-long project like that. I've got another blanket project that I'm almost done with, so I'd like to finish that up rather than do, you know, start another blanket. But I thought, well, it might be kind of fun just to do swatches and use up some oddball yarn just to make swatches, because I like swatches. Now, this pattern is a checkerboard pattern. You can see it more when I hold it close up like that. It's a checkerboard stitch, and I don't know if they call it that or not. I can't remember, but that's what it is. And I've actually used this pattern a bunch of times. I've made baby blankets with it, made washcloths with it. It's not new to me, and neither is the second pattern for January, which is, I think, a King Charles brocade, which I've made in a pair of socks, and it's one of my favorite pairs of socks. So I haven't started that one yet, but I did this one. This is some hand-spun yarn from my friend Patrice, and she raised sheep and spun. She'd have a lot of the yarn mill spun, but she also would hand spin. And she also dyed the yarn, and this was a color called Peacock. The sheep was a Romney or Romney blend. It's not next to Skin Soft. It's a coarser yarn for sure. And you can see the daylight through it. I can see daylight through it. And that is the nature of this particular hand spun of hers, you know, because it's a bit thick and thin. But it worked up in a nice block, and I could probably, if I wanted to, put this in the washer and dryer and shrink it down a bit, full it, so that it's a little bit more dense. If I want, I might still do that, not sure. I basically was just making this swatch to kind of play along with the knit along, but not make the whole big blanket, if that makes any sense. Because I'm sure there are going to be months where the stitch pattern is going to be something, well, I don't know. We'll see. You know, it might be something I don't want to make. But for now, yeah, I'm doing this. And that's that knit along. Join in if you like. Now, someone said in the comments, I believe it was, that they don't mind seeing whips, the works in progress. And I am not going to talk about them too much. I might not show them even every episode, but I did, again, trying to finish up projects that I have started, because gosh, I've found I have so many things started. And yes, I have started 1 or 2 new projects this year, but for the most part, I want to finish things that I've already started. So I did pull this out. I thought, well, what can I pull out to get to a spot where I can, you know, have it to take along and be easy knitting if I need to take a project somewhere. So this is, let me see if I can pull it up right. This is the Skrewball sweater. Oh, it looks good in this light. Oh, good. This is the Skrewball sweater by, Yum sweater by Isabel Kramer. But I'm knitting it in Skrewball Sweater yarn, which is a bamboo wool blend, I believe. And I've heard from a lot of people that this Skrewball yarn grows. So I'm trying to do this at a tighter gauge, smaller needles than I maybe normally, well, I don't know, it feels smaller than what the sweater pattern calls for, I believe, but fine for me, because I'm a loose knitter anyway. And you can kind of see right there where I had the sweater on the needles for a while and then picked it back up. So I hope that blocks out. And I also thought that I was seeing a bit of, it just kind of looked a bit, as I want to say with that other sweater, shop worn. I'm seeing, it's not showing up on the screen too much, but seeing some pilling start maybe, or just a hint of it. And I asked Heidi, who used to own Yarn Cakes, when I saw her a week or so ago, I said, do you think that's looking kind of raggedy? And she had a Skrewball shawl there with her that day, or you know, saying Skrewball was part of that shawl. She said, well, look, it'll be fine. Here, this has been washed and worn a lot, and it's not showing that pilliness to it. And I'm like, okay, I will keep on then. So yeah, I am at a point where the pattern had you do some short rows. You can see them here to raise the back of the neck. So now that's different from the front. And then you work the yoke and do all your increases, and that's where I'm at. And then it wants you to put in another couple sets of short rows before you split for sleeves. And I am not sure what the point of those short rows are. I can understand lifting the back of the neck, but I don't understand why you want more in the back before you split for sleeves. Is that really lowering the back if it's before the armhole opening? And I have to Google that, because I'm right at that point, I believe, where I need to add those short rows. And I'm questioning doing it. I might do it just because the pattern says to do it, but is it going to lower the body if it's happening before the arm opening? Is it going to lower the back? I don't know. What do you think? Will it? Have you done that? Have you added short rows below the yoke like that? It's new to me. And I don't see it in too many patterns. So I'm going to have to study that one before I go any further on this. Because after that, yeah, I would split for the sleeves and just be working on the body, and it's just going to be plain stockinette for the rest of the way. I had that pattern sitting here somewhere. Here it is here. And everybody, I was showing the pattern, they said, oh, are you going to do this? One long sleeve, one short sleeve? And I'm like, no, that's just showing you alternatives. But otherwise, yeah, you know, it'll be smooth sailing after that. So I could take this along and maybe get this sweater done. And I'm really not sure what kind of sleeve length I would do. I think I would do a bracelet length sleeve on this pattern, especially if it would have the propensity to grow. That's my plan. So there's that. And the last thing I want to talk about, if you're interested, this is kind of exciting. Well, kind of exciting. Oh boy. If you're interested, I did this because I said I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I did write down some goals. And that kind of got me, I don't know how. I decided to make a game of these goals. So I made myself, and you, if you would like, I made us a bingo card, which was a fun project in itself, believe me, because I realized that, oops, sorry about that. I was looking for a blank bingo card template, and I wasn't finding anything. At least I wasn't finding anything that was a free download, you know. So then all of a sudden I thought, you know, a bingo card is just a bunch of squares. It's just a bunch of cells. This is an Excel table. Hey. And then it became kind of fun to do. So I made this bingo card, and these are just sort of my goals for the year. And it's a sort of a fun, creative way to look at your stash, your works in progress. If you don't know what you want to make next, maybe, you know, pick something off of the bingo card and play along with me. I will put this on the blog, the Live Learn Knit blog. It'll be a PDF download. I will try to also stick it in the Ravelry group, so you'll find it there. I'm not sure where else. If you can't download it from one of those things and you want it, send me an email and I will send it to you. And the email and the Ravelry links, all of that will be, you know, in the show notes below. So we will, you know, go along with this for the year. It's got things like finish a work in progress. Of course, that was the first thing I thought of. Make a gift for someone. Learn a new technique. The focus of this for me, and you know, if you'd like to play along, is reduce, reuse, recycle, make, do, and mend. All of those kind of, you know, creative repurposing focuses. That's really where I'm at. I don't know if you are, if you want to be here, this might be a good way to get you going on it. So, you know, there's a lot of that involved in this bingo card. So we have, finish a work in progress. Donate some supplies from your stash. You know, that's part of what I'm going to be doing, going through and, you know, getting rid of some things that I don't need, sharing them with others. Find a craft supply at the hardware store. A friend of mine last year brought us all, you know, the barber cords. Well, you can find that silicone cording. That comes from the hardware store, believe it or not. Yeah. So that's where she got a whole big spool of it, and she just chopped it up and shared it with us. And that was really generous. So, you know, look, I mean, you can get blocking supplies at the hardware store, you know, pins and the wires and that can come from the hardware store. There's stitch holders, stitch markers can come from O-rings, the rubber O-rings that you can use for stitch markers. Those come from the hardware store. Anyway, you find some other things. So make a gift, learn a new technique, make something for your local animal shelter, you know, a kennel blanket or toys or something like that. Make a swatch, organize your creative space, create in public, find inspiration at a museum or gallery, repair a garment, take a class, repurpose some old clothing. Now that could be taking apart a sweater, making it into mittens or gloves, or, you know, mittens. You've seen those sewn patterns. Could be taking apart a sweater and making it into a hat. But could be a sewn, like I did with that jacket, and I made a bag out of the jacket fabric. Visit a creative space. So these are not just for knitting and crocheting, they're for anything, you know, any kind of, you know, weaving or sewing or whatever you happen to do. Make a vision board or an idea book. Make an item for charity. Block your finished project. Read about fiber arts history. Find a craft supply at the thrift store. Now that could be just general notions, sewing, you know, buttons or fasteners or zips or thread, whatever you need, yarn, whatever you need. But it could also be something, again, not a crafty supply to begin with, that becomes a crafty supply. Shop at an independent seller's store, at your local yarn shop, or a farm that has a farm shop for, you know, selling the things they make, the wool they make. We're hoping to still get up to that alpaca farm and see what they've got going on. So shop at an independent store rather than a chain. If you have to shop, you know, if you're not just shopping from your stash. Make something that you've never made before. That's going to be a challenge for me, but I'm going to do it. Watch a Fiber Arts podcast. Not just this one, but, you know, another one. Share your knowledge. That could be going to a group and, you know, sharing ideas. And then put together an emergency maker's kit. And I'm thinking of, sometimes I'm in the car and I always have my knitting with me, but just when I don't take it along, that's sometimes when I need it. So, you know, yeah, take an emergency. It could be a little tiny kit that's got some embroidery in it that you want to do. Put it in a little box, you know, small, and throw it in your bag, and you'll have something if you need it to work on. Or, you know, a small crochet project. Throw it in your bag. Throw it in the car. I always wanted to make a shoebox size box for the car with some knitting needles and some, at the time I was making a lot of washcloths, you know, cotton yarn for washcloths could go in there. Or just something, you know, oddball yarn to swatch with. Anything. Just in case. So that's the Maker's Bingo card for the year. If you like that idea, I hope you want to play along. And of course, with bingo games, you know, part of, if you get a bingo, yay, you've accomplished something, you know. Obviously with these things, you've accomplished something by the time you get a bingo. But it's kind of nice to have a prize, and I've not done prizes for a long time. I think there should be prizes that go along with this. I don't have that part worked out yet, but we've got the whole year to figure that out. So there will be a prize element added to this at some point. So stay tuned for that. How's that? It's in development, let's say. But I wanted to get the card out there so you start getting the things accomplished and start working on the card, working on it, if you like. And with all that, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to just get done under a minute, in under an hour, I think. I have a quote because I wanted to just say, as we go along, just keep making and keep creating, because it should bring you joy, and I hope it brings you joy to do. And I found this really good quote from George Bernard Shaw, and this is how we will end today. He says, you use a glass mirror to see your face. You use works of art to see your soul. Isn't that great? Think on that for a while as you're making and creating in the next, till we meet again, okay? All right, great. Thank you very much for joining me today. Enjoy, be happy, be creative. Bye-bye.